Those of you who haven't met me, I'm Brian, and in the afternoon we'll do a bit of the family history if you want to know about the farm. But I'm just going to sort of talk you through the last 12 months of sleepless nights. My gin consumption has gone up, and there's those days when you lie awake at night thinking, what on earth's going on? Well, I'm just going to try and sum up everything that I've done, thought about, and what we're trying to explain today and what's going on. First thing you notice that maybe if the group that keeps on turning up for this, which is great to see everyone, the AHDB might be building a conference centre for me with a bigger screen. So that might be on the budget for next year, note that one. So there are a few details, but I'll try and draw out as much as possible if you can't see at the back, or hopefully you can all hear me. But yeah, that's the biggest screen that I could find. It might be a bed sheet hanging from the wall next year if the budget doesn't get given to me. So think about the bigger picture. Everything that we're trying to do is to look at the bigger picture. Obviously Brexit and that big B word of uncertainty is quite a concern, but going back to where the strategic farm was coming from, it was all about delivering attention to detail, an honest, open appraisal of where this farm is in the current climate, and just showing what sort of things that we're trying to do, and then try and give a story that farmers can follow through the 6 years, and hopefully you'll then adopt some of these ideas or even try and look at them on your own farm. All the trials that we're trying to deliver have all got a sheet being developed by the AHDB team so that you can take this away and try it at your own farm. So we're trying to do it on a field scale, simple, that you can try and roll it out at home. So these are going to be trying to be demonstrations that any farmer can do, any farmer can follow. There's all the, as Emily said, there's all links to all the research being done at the top, but now we've got to deliver it. We need more farmers to do it on the ground and try stuff on the ground. And this is where the whole knowledge exchange will come from. If you go away and try it on your varieties at home, then you come back and start talking to everyone that you've tried it. That knowledge exchange is what the AHDB are really trying to promote. So this is where we need more farmers to go and try stuff. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'll talk about my failures this year in a little while, and you learn by your mistakes. And so this is where the knowledge exchange will start getting passed around. So this is where the momentum of change will hopefully come from. So, the gamble that is farming. We all do it on a day-to-day basis. We try and chuck money on our crops, hoping that we're going to get the money back and hopefully make a bit of profit. That's gambling. And this year, we're doing completely different to what we did last year. But it's how we actually look at our attitude to risk is the key of how we go forward, especially going forward, loss of actives, all this other stuff that's going on. It's that attitude to risk, and we've got to try and break away the stigma of doing the same way all the time. That's the way we've always done it. And that's one of the sayings that came out of my monitored farm 3 years, was the way that we've always done it. Well, if you ever say that to yourself, then you've got to sit back and reflect and say, is that the best way now? Time has moved on, technology's moved on, everything's moved on. So if you're doing it the same way, tiring with the same brush, doing everything the same way all the time, we've got to sort of break away from that mentality. But the biggest thing that we can't control is the rainfall. Luckily we had some last night just to dampen it and make it all look lush and green outside. So, but it wasn't like that all this winter. So this is the rain data from October. You probably can't see the numbers, but we only had 8 rain events of, 4 rain events of over 8 mil from October till now. And so that's quite low, in considering that normally you're guaranteed to have quite a few. But when you compare to where we were in previous years, we'll go into a little bit of detail in other slides, but from August through to May, we've only had 330 mil of rain, which is compared to last year about 120 mil less, and then the year before that we're actually about the same state. But then what we went into 2 years ago and last year, we had one very wet June, so 16-17, so June 17 we had 61 mil in June, and then last year in June we only had 4 mil. So So this is the gamble that we've got to sort of try and work our business around to understand what's going on. So highlighting a few things that happened last autumn. The stale seabeds, obviously we've got blackgrass. I'm a farmer, I have blackgrass, and if you tell me that you don't, well, I'll go and kick you off my farm because everyone's got some. When you were trying to get that disturbance, trying to get that stimulation, get some blackgrass grow, we were actually quite dry, and it took a bloody long time for this stuff to start coming. And that's where, how brave were you? What was the risk of getting your crops in too early? What were the risks of getting your crops in too late? And so this is the gamble that farmers are taking. What is the risk to actually letting that blackgrass go through? Well, this was something that we had to play with. So we sort of said, well, how long do you go? And my dad always said the elastic band on the drill that's tied to the back of the workshop broke one day, and then all hell let loose, and we got going. So we had a flush. Maybe I went too early, I should have waited, but at the end of the day, I've got to try and get a crop established to get going, to make money, to start the process. And so this is where every year is slightly different. Year before that, in September, we had 66 mil, and so 66 mil, nicely soaked, everything got up and away. Pretty much half the crops weren't combined at that point, but never mind. Last year we finished and we were twiddling our fingers, and my wife was praising me to go on holiday in September. So all years are completely different. Then we roll on to the winter when you're thinking, yeah, we've got a nice clay base in our soil. We need to fill this reservoir up. Obviously we had quite a dry June last year, and then we didn't actually have that much winter rainfall. So was our reservoir really drawn out? Did it ever get a chance to restock and recharge its reservoir underneath? That was the unknown that we didn't know. We were obviously monitoring the drains, and so we had a couple of rain events. They started running, so when I drove past, it's always on a Friday afternoon when you want to go somewhere else. I was then out with my jugs in the pitch black, trying to get the syrup that was coming out of the first flush, because they weren't producing what we normally did. So I actually had to sellotape the jug underneath a couple of the outpipes, go and have dinner, and then come back 4 hours later to find it. So when you're all tucked up at bed, strategic farmers doing things. Thank you very much. So I'll get my violin out now. And then I go and drown all my sorrows with gin, so that's fine. Everyone says, oh, well, in a dry winter, your roots are going to go down there. Well, is that true? We don't know. Is that going to stand us in good state for a spring coming forward? Has the winter roots gone down deeper because they're searching for that water that wasn't there? We don't know, but that's something that we've got to sort of look at and think about going forward. Then we had a cracking time. Our soil is high calcium, low magnesium, so when it gets dry, restricts, cracks open, and I was noticing cracks pretty much on my mum's birthday when I should have been having cake with her. I was actually walking fields, and I was already seeing cracks on the 1st of March. And so at that point, when the crop's trying to build biomass, absorb all that moisture, and then we've got bloody great cracks going down there, all the roots at the top, you can see them all literally like cheese wire, and then when you came back and they've gone a bit further, they've all broken. So what damage has been done to those feeder roots at the surface? And so we were seeing this really early on. Put the old tape measure down there, I was getting the tape measure down there about a foot. So that was letting air in, that was letting everything else coming. So is that actually going to have an impact now when we're getting the moisture? Have those top roots survived, or is it going to be slightly different? So when we're looking at through the construction phase, so from February all the way through to May, when you compare what we had in previous years for rainfall, 2017 we had 115 mil. Last year, 2018, we had 166 mil. And then this year, through the same period, we've only got to 87 mil. So has that had a big impact on the crops that we were trying to grow and sustain through spring? Probably it did. When you look walking, we actually noticed when we were doing all the till accounts, which will come later, that we did drop a little bit of biomass, and I'll talk about the dry matter that's been produced later on. So I'm just trying to feed in a little bit of information that all the experts on the stops on the trailer are going to sort of hopefully pick up on if they remember what I tell them. So this is where we're looking at. So early cracks, then it had something else which I'll come on and talk about later on. But now the other saying that my dad always comes saying, a dripping June will put everything in tune. Well, is that going to be true? Are we going to get that rainfall that we want for grain fill, so that when it's all starting to put on a decent grain fill should actually be quite good? But when we compared it to last year, if we get another 4 mil, we've actually had 9 mil over 2 days. So we've already smashed out June last year, so we're all right. So 4 mil last year, but the year before that we had 61 mil. So where are we going to be this year? So this again has been the gamble when we've been investing in our crops and our fungicide control. T3s are due on next week. So what impact is that going to have for the disease? Through flowering, I've got linseed that should be flowering in a couple of weeks. We don't want to have lots of rainfall then. I've got grass that needs to flower. So there's lots of critical things, and it's still a bloody long way to go before we start combining to actually see what we fill up these sheds with hopefully a decent crop, good quality, and everything else that we're trying to plan. So this is the gamble that is farming, and one thing that we can't control is the weather. So that's what we're going to sort of leave that rain. I'm not even going to start on sunlight because I've only got 20 minutes. I think I've already been tutted out and tapped at the back. So drain samples, urine samples, field urine samples. I've been doing this for 2 years. Really interesting. Quite hard when you speak to Ian, he'll be out on about. It's quite hard to sort of compare year from year because obviously the rainfall's completely different. But there are a few themes coming through. Nitrate releases, again, a massive biggie, and I'll explain that a little bit while. Pesticide residue, actually it's been quite low for the last 2 years, so that's a bonus that we're not actually seeing any sort of big residues of any of the pesticides coming through. But I'm sure Ian will sort of talk about that. Sedimentation, this is the photos from last year's urine samples, so a little bit dehydrated in the middle and quite a few pints on the outside. So they're slightly different, but this year they all pretty much ran clean because the volume of water going through the ground was probably less. And so we had an initial flush, which was pretty much all the dust coming out of the pipes. But then after that, I didn't really see or notice much cloudy or sedimentation in drains, but that's just observations, and this is where the 6th year gives us a chance to sort of build these observations all the way through. But the overwinter cover crop, this is going to be talked about earlier, but I'm going to give you a little snippet just to sort of whet your appetite. Nitrate, we did a plough. Last year we were comparing plough and cover crops and stubbles. This year the nitrate coming out from under the plough was off the scale, so the red bar's 310 millilitres of nitrate straight up, followed by about 2 weeks later it was about 280. And then by the time it was sort of the last flush, the 4th time we did it, it was averaging about 150. So that's 3 times more than the actual EU limit of 50 milligrams. Compare that to the cover crop out the front where we had ploughed it over and then put a cover crop right in behind it. Right from the start, when the plough on its own was producing 310, the cover crop actually underneath the cover crop was only releasing 9 milligrams. So that's a massive difference. So people say, oh, bloody cover crops, I'll plough it, but well, actually this is saying that if you're worried about water quality, we potentially need to be ploughing them over and then putting a cover crop straight behind them, using the roots to actually absorb all the nitrate that's actually been created. So this is a little story that might come, and we as an industry might have to be aware of this, because the questions in government are being asked about water quality, public money for public good. Nitrate leaching is costing us billions of pounds as a country, so this might be something that we all have to wake up and be a bit more proactive about learning how we can actually get crops behind it. So the trial is now looking at future when this nitrate nitrogen that's been absorbed is being released, and so there's lots going on. So this is all the sort of questions that we need to be asking. Early biomass, there's going to be a talk about this earlier, something that I think that we need to be enhancing, because looking at nitrate, we need to get more biomass in the autumn, so the roots are out there, so they go after the nitrate that then potentially is falling out the bottom. And so we need to see if we can manipulate the crops going in the ground to get them a bit more on the way up. And so we're looking at fertiliser placement, broadcasting fertiliser in the autumn. And so Ian's going to be talking about that and challenging mindset a little bit about what we're doing. But again, where these 2 fields, we've got apple tree and shrubbery, which we'll talk about on the tour later on. But the apple tree was an early drilled crop after beans, and shrubbery was a late drill after grass, completely polar opposites of my drilling dates. Both first weeks, both ripped up with the same bit of machinery, done all the same, and you can see whether the early drill, which had a bigger biomass, was actually had less nitrate coming out underneath. So that's saying that it's actually chased after a bit more because it's had more time to grow, more solar panels on top, more roots going down, more absorption of nutrients. So this is something that we're looking at going forward. So more biomass going into winter. Cover crops, destruction, 2018, last year, we played around with all the weird and wacky things. Got the old rib rolls out, rolled all the mustard down, that did quite a good job. Tried a crimper roller, and we backed up with the glyphosate. But we were doing an extra pass, there was lots going on, and I was like, well, this is going to be where everyone's talking about crimper rollers and getting your direct drill out and going on the green. But then we looked at the black grass underneath it and thought we can't really do that. So glyphosate still is a key, so we've got to make sure that we're campaigning with our MPs and make sure everyone understands the worth of glyphosate. So these are the options that we had last year, and then this year we brought back sheep. I didn't have anything to do with it, the family didn't have to do anything. Luckily I've got two local shepherds who said, oh, we'll come do it. I was like, yes. And there was only one day I had to actually go and mend the electric fence, and that was because the sheep were right next to my biomass trial, that if I thought the sheep got onto the biomass trial, that might skew the data for the next year. So there was I, and the only day it bloody rained, I'm there tying up bloody wire and getting electric shocks, so I didn't realise there was actually 2 batteries on it. But that's just me, so yeah, so you can see what happened. So, but it was really good because it actually got rid of all that biomass. Last year we had crops up here, we had mustard standing that tall, which we were rolling down and letting all the bacteria and everything do it. But this time the golden hoof came up, reduced it, got it to the floor. That meant that we didn't, last year we had to do 2 applications of glyphosate on our big crops, because when you're trying to spray off mustard that sort of tall, trying to hit the black grass at the bottom, well, that ain't going to happen. And so this has been something that we really enjoyed, and the sheep has been great for wildlife, for biodiversity, and for public perception, because all the people in the village really enjoyed seeing it, and it also kept all their bloody dogs on the lead. So, and then you get the organic matter conversion, loads of manure going in, loads of available nutrients, so hopefully, again, this is what we're going to see coming on. The cover crop trial didn't get grazed, because we didn't want to throw another spanner into the consumption. But yeah, no, this is something that I think is going to come more and more, and farmers need to be working together. I went and found 2 grazers who are local, got them on the farm, and it was all fun and games, and nice freezer full of lamb in return. So this is the sort of 2-way relationship we need to be working with. I know there's people in the room who have got cover crops who can graze them. Okay, last year was a dry winter, maybe in a wet winter we've got to be a bit more aware, but we mob grazed it, and so we've got to be open up and say, look, I know that I've got a gang of farmers who've got X amount of cover crop. If it gets too wet on that field and they start plugging up, we need to be able to move them quickly. And so it's all hands to the deck. And so farmers have got to start working and collaborating together. So crop report. Generally, winter cereals started off, came out of the ground really well. And there was a very good establishment. Going through the winter, again, they were growing and they kept on growing. We did have good control from our preems for blackgrass. That's quite evident that when we were walking it, we actually felt that we had, and you can see where we had a couple of spray misses. Sorry, Nick, there are a couple of spray misses. There are quite obvious patches where we've actually got brome and blackgrass where it hasn't been controlled. But we've then had a big spring flush, which I'll talk about later on. But the disease pressure for me, septoria was low. It never had the rain to cycle it around the plant. That microclimate that we've got within the crops. Obviously now we're on wider rows, we've actually noticed that our disease pressure is less because they're getting a chance to actually dry out and there's not as much leaf rub. And so there's quite a lot, so the septoria is low, but then we've had the rust pressure all the way through the year building up. And so that's something that we've got to look at. But the key for us now, we've set our crops up, they're hanging on, they actually don't look too bad considering the spring that we've had, and now we're just fingers crossed for a decent grain field, because I think we've got potential, and we just got to make sure that we manage that potential and hopefully get it in the shed, and hopefully when the combines start rolling it's not going to be deluge or anything like that, touch wood. Spring crops, interesting spring. April we only had 8 mil, and so it was very hard, crusty top, trying to get crops in the ground, direct drilling behind cover crops. Obviously the sheep had then walked around on it, a little bit of a crust, and so it was quite a challenge to try and get that in the ground, but we did get them in the ground. So we've got some direct linseed behind the cover crops. We've actually got the ploughed linseed as well, and the full inversion, I hate Mintil, full inversion of stubble as well to compare against. But we've had problems with flea beetle, so they have used of insecticide on some of the linseed. But then also we have actually trialled canary seed, and that went into probably what I'd describe as our bogey field. Everyone's got one that you just can't get right ever. And we've had to write off the canary seed because there was dual germination, so some came where it got moisture, some didn't. So I've got, and this is the first time I've never actually seen it actually in a field, let alone, I've seen pictures of it on the internet. But do you believe everything you see on the internet? So we've actually got too much black grass, so I walked it with Toby, and we sort of had to call the line on it and say that even if it was a good crop, we wouldn't want to have that black grass going through. And also we've had slugs. One thing that I was talking to everyone who's growing and said, oh, those slugs won't be a problem. Behind a cover crop, behind sheep, in a stubble situation as well, we've actually lost quite a lot of slugs. So lessons learned, we all know about it now, and so probably going to still. We're actually growing it for the bird food market. The local bird food producer wanted to grow a Suffolk mixture, so everything in that mix is grown in Suffolk. So we're going to try and keep a little section, so at least you can have probably a tonne, and so you can save it for a little while, and then he'll import the other 200 tonnes from Canada or somewhere like that. So yes, we have had a failure, but in my break crops, and you'll see around the place, there's a lot of black grass that we've been spraying off. We don't want to have seed drop in our break crops, and so that's what's going on. We're getting 5-minute wave, so I've got to hurry up. We'll skip this bit. First year, farming potential, we've had NDVI scanners put on our sprayer. We toyed around with drones last year, felt that in what we were trying to do, a actual boom mounted one, so every time we go through the crop we get taking a picture. We're starting to build this picture, so that'll be something that we can build on next year. Can I get the yellow bits looking a bit more like the dark green bits by the end of it? Play around with the variable rate applications of all the fertilisers and everything else on, so that's going on with the plant vision with Omnia, so they're all here as well. So then we get on to the feeding potential. This is comparing 3 years data, so all through the time of year, so this is showing as crops grow, biomass, dry matter. This year we actually had half a tonne more dry matter than we had the year before, so that showed what we were coming out into T0 and early winter, so we thought, yeah, we've got potential here, we've got to start feeding it, trying to get the fertiliser right, trying to get the trace elements all levelled up, and so we can see that there's a little bit more development. Then we got to T1, and we were nearly, again, still keeping nearly half a tonne, 0.6 a tonne of dry matter in front of where we were last year, and well in the front of where we were 2 years ago, so we'd actually carried that through, kept that biomass coming through, and so we're thinking, crikey, T1, we're like, we've got some potential here, now where do you start putting your investments onto your fungicide? And so this is where, but you can see that where we produced a massive dry matter, we were starting to draw a lot more nutrients into the low and very low. And so this is then we had to then go around, and so when we had that dry period through April, we were like, yeah, well, we've got to think it's not everything's cracked open, it's not getting the nutrients from the roots that we know that we've seen that they've all cracked open. So then we used some trace element mixes, some weird and wacky snake oil, everyone calls it. So we put some of that on to just try and stimulate, get something into the plant. And so we went from slightly low, we're not too far off the mark, but we were just thought actually in a year where you haven't got water in the ground to transfer that nutrients, we're going to try and get it straight into the shot in the arm instead of actually trying to allow it to come from the soil. And then we're at T2. This is where we had obviously gone through that dry period in April when we were starting to fill. We saw that tiller shoots and shoot numbers had reduced. So we actually showed that we actually lost quite a few of our minor shoots. So the transfer from, we had 1,000 shoots at pretty much T0 average, and then we lost quite a lot of the minor ones. They all got fed up with the hot weather and the dry through April. And so now we're sitting at about 563 tillers per square metre at T2. So we've still got quite a lot going on, but again, after that shot in the arm, we can see a few more green bars on the right. So did that work? Yes or no? We don't really know, but we're trying to keep that plant healthy so it doesn't get disease problems and it's not stressed, and you're trying to think about it as if you take a vitamin in the morning, that's what we're trying to keep everything going, just feeding it in. But you can see the dry matter, last year was 10.8 tonnes, this year we're 9.5 tonnes. So we've actually gone the other way. So this year was in front at T0, T1, and then T2 it's dropped compared to the year before where it actually kept on building all the way through. So has that affected our yield going forward? Don't know, it's a long way to go. Cost of production, this is our all my fields a week, and this is the multiple charts of what Nick has to apply for every single field. So all these different colours means a different tank mix. Cheers, Nick. So Toby and I try and keep it within the same page, but we tried different things. Obviously, the loss of CTL next year is going to be something, so we tried fields without any T0, tried some more snake oil, just to see what was going on. But then we thought at T0, we thought there's potential. We've done the shoot counts and everything, so we thought there's potential, so we thought actually we've got to invest into these crops. T1, again, there was quite a lot going on, so we thought actually we're going to put a bit more into it. And then at T2, we're like going, oh, we haven't had any rain, and it's all looking a little bit frazzled. What do we do? So we pulled back the rains. And so we started thinking, well, which varieties need more, which varieties need less. I know Teresa, I'm still going, don't worry. T3, we have got just basic going on, but then we've also got some stuff to protect our seed crops for next year. So we're growing our seed crops, we've got to give them, make sure there's no fusarium and on the quality weeds. Blackgrass battle. Right, I think we've got two germination timings, one in the autumn, one in the spring. We've got two flushes this year. Have we created a monster in genetics? Are we getting rid of all the stuff that's germinating in the autumn and then we're getting a flush that we can't control in the spring? Questions? I don't know. This is something that we've got to look at. When do you start to decide to pull it, to mow it, to spray it, to get rid of it, just to ignore it and put your head in the sand? I don't know. This is what we've got to look at. Double spring break. So that's what I'm looking at, trying to get a double spring break to see if we can break this cycle. Also, will fallow come into it as well? So that's another question. Then I've used the handy soil app, very good, marked out the areas, completely walked around it in dismay. Oh my God, I've got blackgrass, oh my God, I've got blackgrass. Using the app, did it and sent John with a map down there, mowed the whole lot out. Can't have seed coming back in that volume. Looked at the wheat, wasn't the best bit of wheat. Take the hit, first cut is always the deepest. Dead the pride, everyone can see it from the road, never mind. But we're doing something, we're trying to be proactive. I also then said, right, outside our mine, I got out there and I spent 10 days pulling it, and my back by that point was like, oh, bloody hell. So, got fed up and I walked into a field, too many plants to pull out by hand, and I was like, oh, I don't want to mow it, what can I do halfway? So I thought, I know what, go on eBay, buy a hedge cutter, battery powered, 60 quid, cut all the heads off. Can't see it, brilliant. Oh, look, a field of wheat. There is method to the madness, because all the shoots that are coming out, first one's up, massive great ears, huge ears, yeah, great, they're massive, game of numbers, that's going to have 200 on it. Even if I cut half of it off before it's flowered, is that actually going to be flowered? Is it viable? I don't know, this is another question that's going to come out of it. So, this is where we are. So I start cutting them all off, cut some off completely. I know there's some in the crop that I've missed, but is that plant actually going to kick out another tiller? Question mark, look for something next year. If I cut half the head off, is that bottom half going to flower? Question mark. So there's lots of question marks, so I've done a whole field. It's bloody therapeutic. And people will say, oh, they'll just shoot again, they'll be fine. And oh, all those heads you cut off, they'll just grow at the bottom and they'll come. I said, right then, we'll put the money where the mouth is. So now I've got a greenhouse full of blackgrass heads. So we've got some which are fully flowered, we've got some that are halfway flowered, we've got some that haven't flowered, and so I'm going to take them through and see what comes. I'm going to keep on going. Every time it rains, I get the old watering can out. So this is what's going to go on, and if they don't germinate on the ear, I'm going to pull half the seed off and see if I can actually propagate them properly. So this is, again, a sleepless night trial that my wife is going, where's my, where are all my vegetable patches? I was like, don't worry, they're all gone. Social media, another thing that we've got to be, as an industry, is getting onto the wider picture now. Farm wildlife, we did a tweet for every single day last year for a year about farm wildlife, hashtag farm wildlife, and we recorded how many times it got viewed. It got viewed 1 million times in a year. This is all positive, proactive stuff that any farmer can do. Don't get drawn into the red mist, don't get challenged on social media. We as an industry have to be better at telling the good stories. And so one tweet a day, don't get drawn into a fight. Go and realise that your farm is probably one of the most beautiful places that you'll look at, and go and take a picture of it and put good stories on there and flood the internet and social media with good stories about farming, because that is key. If you're not on Twitter, go and do it. Instagram, Facebook, don't get drawn into tit-for-tat arguments, especially with your own peers, because the general public and the politicians are looking at social media. So, do everything positive. Pollinators, there's loads going on. If you look around the farm at the moment, it's beautiful, it's stunning. You'll see it later on tomorrow afternoon. So, don't get drawn into tit-for-tat. Don't fight with your peers. And do everything positive going forward. Bigger picture, this is my last slide. We need to look at the bigger picture. This potentially could be our biggest crop in future coming through Brexit. If the elms and everything comes, this could be our biggest crop. Forget winter wheat, forget grassy crops. This is what we've got to start learning. And so that's why this is where the strategic farm is going to look at the bigger picture. And this is where David and Patrick are going to sort of talk about what we've done on our farm. Yes, we're known as the wildlife farm as well, because that's something that we really enjoy, but there's something in here for everyone. And so we're going to start looking at it in the afternoon to build about beneficials, looking at it as an IPM method. This potentially is going to be what we need to learn, and what does David call it? E-agronomy, enviro-agronomy, could be something that we've all got to learn. So that is me. We're getting on the trailers. Yellow one needs to be loaded up first, silver one second, red at the last. There's drivers, there's organisers, there's water.